Hey, how are you? Nathan here from PH Studios, and welcome back to another networking tutorial. Last tutorial, we discussed the spawn pool and incorporated that into our game and how to use that. And then we also incorporated a way to reuse bullets, mark them as inactive whenever they go past the top or bottom sides of the screen. And there were a few issues that I mentioned and talked a little bit about, and how to get around those, and just general concepts that we had to deal with in the last tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed that. But in this tutorial, we're going to take things one step further and worry about collision now. A few things I changed since the last tutorial. I did change the name of the spawn pool. I call it Bullets Pool now at the top. So if you're following along, go ahead and rename that. I also created the int player health and enemy health right away. Or you can add it to the gameplay object itself. But at that point, you're also giving bullets health. So if you want to do it object-oriented, you want to really create derivatives of gameplay object called player, or ship, basically. And then bullets. And ships will have health, but bullets will not. So there's multiple ways you can do that. Now set the player health and enemy health to 1. Now I did change the enemy bullets to the for loop. If you remember the last tutorial, I left 1 as a for each loop and 1 as the for loop. So I made both of them the for loops, because it's pretty much the cleanest way to go. As much as I love the for each loops, there are some cases where you really need to use the for loops. And I believe that was everything I modified. Yes, alright, so let's go ahead and worry about collision. So when we update the bullets, we need to check to see if it's past the side of the screen. If it's not past the side of the screen, we want to check the collision. So else, go back to the update method, and when we're doing the for loop on the player bullets, and let's go ahead and do the collision detection here. So we have the main if that checks to see if it's outside the screen, and then go ahead and create an else. Else if. Now we need to get to the bullets directly like an array. So if player bullet sub I dot rectangle dot intersects with player dot rectangle. If they intersect, it's a collision. So what we need to do is we need to set the player health minus minus. We need to remove the bullet, just like we do here. So we basically copy this logic here. So we add the bullet to the spawn pool. We remove the bullet from the list. And actually, we're looping in the player bullet. So if we look at our else if, change player.rectangle to enemy.rectangle. We're looping through the player bullets, so I apologize for that. It's been a rough day for me, so I'm all over the place these past few tutorials. So anyway, we have player bullets intersect with enemy bullets. Alright, now we need to set the enemy health. We need to set the enemy health to, we need to subtract 1 from the enemy health. We need to add the bullet that intersected with the enemy to the bullets pool. We need to remove it from the main list, and then we need to do the same thing, which is subtract 1 from I, because when we add 1 to I here, it'll be a net 0 of change. So we just look at the new bullet that comes in the line. Alright, so now we need to do the same thing. If we copy this else if block, and paste it below, we need to do the same thing for the enemy bullets. So we have else if change the player bullets to enemy bullets. So it's else if enemy bullets sub I dot rectangle dot intersects player dot rectangle player health minus minus and bullets pool to add enemy bullets sub I enemy bullets dot remove at 1 and I minus minus. Alright, so that calculates the collision along with the bullet updates. So now we need to check to see if player health is equal to 0. We need to perform logic when the player dies. Else if, actually not else if both enemies died at the same time, we want to give them the equal messages. So if you die and your enemy dies, you do not get a bonus, and the enemy doesn't get a bonus. You both get the same treatment, basically. Enemy health is equal to 0. Perform logic when the enemy dies. Alright, so for now I'm just going to do a message box.show you have died. Now for the enemy, I'm going to do message box.show the enemy has died. Alright, so now when the player dies, we need to send that information to the both clients should be equal. If they are not, we need to go ahead and send out an information. So we just need to send it out just to be safe. So go ahead and modify the protocols. Now put a comma after the bullets created is equal to 3 or whatever number you gave it. Put a comma after it and press enter, and let's make a new line. Let's call it player died is equal to 4. Put a comma. Enemy died is equal to 5, and then that's it. Go ahead and save the protocols. Let's go back to the game1.cs. Alright, so in the player health, let's go ahead and call write stream. We're doing this before the message box. So we call write stream.position is equal to 0. Writer.write, it's going to be a byte, and we're going to call protocol.player died. And then we're going to call, actually we don't need to send any more information because the player died. We know the health will be 0. I was going to send it the player health, but we know it's going to be 0, so we don't need to send any useless information. Alright, so that's basically all we need to do, and after that we'll just call send data, and then we send it get data from memory stream and write stream. Alright, so we send the data. Now we need to do the same thing for the if enemy health is equal to 0. Right before the message box, we call write stream dot position is equal to 0. Writer.write is going to be a byte. It's going to be a protocol dot enemy died, and that's it. But we do need to call send data get data from memory stream write stream. Alright, so now we have the sending done. Now we need to worry about the receiving. So if you go to the process data method, where we do all of our other protocol checking, the last thing we did was if P is equal to bullet created protocol, go ahead and create another else if P is equal to protocol.player died. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky. You receive a player died protocol. That means that you need to modify the enemy. You need to check the enemy. Client A sends that they died. Client B refers to them as an enemy. So that's why we need to check the enemy. So if enemy health is not equal to 0, we need to set it to 0. Enemy health is equal to 0. And then we need to do all of our manipulation just like we did above. Message box.show enemy has died. Alright. Else if P is equal to protocol.enemy died, that's you now. You're the receiving end, so you died actually. So if player health is not equal to 0, player health is equal to 0, and message box.show I have died. Okay, so one final thing we need to do, otherwise we'll have an infinite loop going on, is we need to have a Boolean up top with all of our other variables and objects. So let's call Boolean finished, or somebody died, or game over. Game over is equal to false. Alright, so at this point, whenever one person dies, if player health is equal to 0 and not game over, we do the information here and then we set game over is equal to true. Now we need to do the same thing here. If enemy health is equal to 0 and not game over, we do all the logic and then we call game over is equal to true. Alright. And actually, if you want to go back to the give both player and enemy equal treatment, you can do it an easier way, which is make all this inside another if not equal to game over. Alright, so if it's not game over, we need to check the health, and then there we go. Okay, so one final thing to change is inside of the receive data method, the player protocol, player died protocol, and enemy died protocol. I deleted the message box because they were redundant with the update method. When it updates again, it will come back and it will check it's not game over yet. It will check the health and then it will show everything itself. So let's go ahead and press F5. Oh, also one final thing. I enabled it to where you will not draw the player or the enemy if their health are less than 0 or equal to 0. Less than or equal to 0. So what you need to do is modify the if player is not equal to null inside of the draw method, if player is not equal to null and player health is greater than 0, and then modify if enemy connected and enemy health is greater than 0. Alright, I think we're done with the collision at this point. Let's go ahead and test it. The enemy has died. Alright. And you have died. Alright. So, you have died on the right screen, and the enemy has died on the left screen. Now we can move around, and we can go ahead and finish up. Alright, so that was it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. It got a little bit complex with the collision, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Also, this is my first time creating tutorials. All 3 tutorials I did today after a work day, so I was all out of it, and I apologize for that. I usually save my tutorials for the weekend for just that reason. I have lots of time to prepare and get things going. I do several run-throughs of tutorials. I mess up sometimes, and I just delete the tutorial and create a new one because I'm a perfectionist. So you're getting probably the 3rd run-through when I usually do 4 or 5. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. The series is almost done. However, I mentioned this in the artificial intelligence tutorial. See, I can't even talk straight today. I mentioned this in the artificial intelligence tutorial that this is going to be the last tutorial for the year 2011. And the reason is I accidentally hit F1 on my keyboard. The reason this is the last tutorial is because I'm going to be spending the rest of the year getting the Tower Defense series all finished up and packaged up for you guys, ready for you to download. And there are going to be 2 versions of the game. I was going to create a Christmas version, but I might just create like a New Year's version instead. I haven't decided, because it will be probably after Christmas. It'll be closer to like December 30th by the time I release everything. Because obviously the Christmas day and then a few days before or after, I might be doing something, so just keep that in mind if it's delayed a little bit longer. That is the reason. So I might actually do like a New Year's thing where you have like a 2012 glass ball that you can throw from a tower or something, and it'll explode in little small pieces, or just something like that. That might be kind of cool. I don't know what the monsters would be though, but it should be interesting. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. We only have like 2 tutorials left, but they'll have to wait until the Tower Defense tutorial is done. So for those that only watch the networking tutorials, I'll see you in early 2012, right after the Tower Defense series is finished. If you have any interest at all, check out my Tower Defense series. I spent a whole lot of time on it. I did the audio, the sound effects, the graphics, the video, everything all from scratch. So all by myself, no help. And I'd really appreciate it if somebody would look at it. And keep that in mind too. It's not going to be like incredible or anything. It's just going to be a tutorial made, it's going to be a game made for tutorials. So, and one person doing all that stuff can't really spend all the time in the world focusing on one aspect, which is what major game developers do. They have a few guys work on graphics, and that's all they do. They don't move on to or they might, some of them might, I don't know. It could depend on the business, but typically you have a graphic artist, and that's all that they do. So for me, I had to do everything from scratch, and then all the coding itself. So keep that in mind, and if you think the game sucks, just keep that in mind. It was made for a tutorial, that's pretty much the concept here, and it was made for easy expansion. So if you're a better graphic artist than me, you can expand on it and make it look better. So anyway, that's it for this video, and that's it for the networking tutorials and artificial intelligence tutorials for the year. So I'll see you in a few weeks. Have a nice day.